Okay, it's 6:30. We'll call this meeting to order. The District Advisory Board for District 3, thank you everyone for coming. And do we need to do, yeah, we need to do the oath of office right off the top.
Yep.
Is staff on?
I am. I'm here.
Okay, there's
All right.
Jamie.
Take us away, Jamie. All right. So everybody that's needing sworn in tonight, I will need you to unmute your mics, please, and turn on your camera so I can see you. All right. I think everybody is unmuted, maybe. Yes. All right. So if you could please just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Joseph Shepard,
Solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States
solemnly swear to support the Constitution
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of the District 3 Advisory Board
of the District 3 Advisory Board
for the City of Wichita, Kansas, so help me God.
for the city of Wichita, Kansas,
so help me God.
All right, perfect. So you guys are good to go. What I'm going to do is mail out a packet. And those of you who are reappointees, you'll remember this from last year. In your packet, you'll have your oath of office along with an acceptance letter. And you'll have your certificate and a couple other things. But those 2 pages, I'll need you to send back to me in a self-addressed stamped envelope that I'll include as soon as you can do that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much and have a good meeting tonight.
Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
And I apologize. My camera is probably going to be offset a little while, but I am facing it to allow Gerald to see. So I may be in the corner or we'll have to deal with it tonight.
Jared?
So, yes, Mike, go ahead.
This isn't going to be the way you conduct your first year offset, is it?
I've been told I'm worse than offset before, so
Okay.
it's not the first time. But everybody, welcome. I appreciate you. We have 3 new appointees. I wanted to point out our 3 new appointees in Joseph Shepard, Jessica Lucas, and Emily Fogg. So welcome to our 3 new appointees, and I'm excited to see what they have to offer for the DAB. So first thing we need to do is approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at and review tonight's agenda? And if so, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Yeah, there you go.
Mike Loop motion and a second by Richard Ruth. All those in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. And we need to approve the minutes for the March 3rd meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes from last month on March 3rd? And if so, I would entertain a motion.
Ron Tracy, so moves.
Second.
Motion to approve the minutes by Ron Tracy, seconded by Mike Loop. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right. The Wichita Police Department. Who do we have on from the Wichita Police Department? I apologize, I haven't seen.
How you doing? Yeah, I'm Officer Manny Thompson.
out of Patrol East.
Take
I
it
put
away.
I'm doing well, myself. Well, I hope you're doing well too. I put my contact information in the chat, so feel free to shoot me an email, or that's my business phone number. Call or text that if you have any issues. Is it my turn to go?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Thank you.
Good deal. Okay. Just have a few things for you. So we had part of 32B aligns with DAB 3 area. So just this past Saturday, we had did an Easter event down at Hilltop at Friendship Park. Had Mounted activated for that. They had a little over 90 kids that signed up for it. And speaking of kids, we have been doing a kids clothing drive since March 1st, and it ends next Friday, April 16th. If you have any new socks, new underwear, new or gently used shoes or blankets, things of that sort, just take those down to Patrol East if you'd like to donate and help out. Just a few things. I always mention this during my DAB 2 and DAB 3 meetings, but larceny to autos, where there's a debit or credit card taken, the numbers have been going down since I moved out to Patrol East last September. So from March 8th to April 4th, we've had just 16 larceny autos with credit card or debit card taken. So what occurs with those types of incidents, the person's wallet, purse, those type of items are usually left in the vehicle. When those types of items get stolen, then we run into identity theft and unlawful use of financial cards. So we're trying to keep that to a minimum by education. Now the 24, so if you probably heard of the flock system. Since March 29th, just between March 29th and April 4th, we've recovered 24 stolen vehicles. Just some quick flock stats. I want to inundate you with it. Let me see. So since we've begun utilizing flock, we've recovered a little over $1.5 million in property, 147 vehicles, some catalytic converters, lawn equipment, tools. That's all put into that $1.5 million figure. We made 163 arrests, 110 of those being felony, 47 misdemeanors. We found 5 runaways and 1 missing person. The reason why I mentioned that, this information is the city council voted 7-0 to sign a contract for 1-year use of the flock system. So we'll have to figure out funding on it for next year. Just for those of you who may be wondering, we have 110 LPRs. The budget is $275,000 annual. Let me see. If there's any more information in reference to the flock system that you want, like I said, I put my email in the message area. I'm not going to inundate you with it. But if you personally want to reach out to me, feel free to do so, or call and text. But I have all the updated information in reference to flock. Like I said, we'll be using it at least for the next year, and they'll probably be going up for vote again. So just feel free to reach out. Are there any questions?
All right, we'll keep it with the DAB first. I do anticipate some public questions about the flock system. So
yeah, just reach out to me. Just reach out to me. Got my information right there.
okay, there is, and I know someone's on the meeting tonight who will want to discuss this publicly. So Officer Jensen, I noticed, was on. Did he have any comments first?
Yeah, just a few things to touch on. Wanted to let everybody know. There was roughly 50 recruits that are in their training right now on the streets. In the next couple of weeks, they're going to be graduating, so we're super excited about getting them out to kind of bolster our forces out on the streets and be able to respond and answer calls. We have about 25 recruits that are going through the academy now, so they're going to be trained up, and then they're just just getting started, so it'll be a little while before they get out onto the streets. We are the department has what are called CRT officers, which focus on violent crimes and gangs and drugs and stuff like that. Right now, there's 4 officers per bureau, and they're actually doubling that, getting 8 officers, and they're going to have 7-day coverage now, so that they can address the situation and issues quicker, more prevalently, and with more manpower. So we're really excited. That's gonna hit the streets in the next couple of weeks as well. And then on South Side, I work on 26th Beat down in South City. But on the South Bureau, we're doing a special assignment here in the next little bit, focusing on abandoned houses. We're going to address them with MABCD because we noticed that at abandoned houses, there's a lot of people that like to congregate there, and it ultimately leads to criminal activity. So if we can get them secured and boarded up and things of that nature, and keep them somewhat nice so that people aren't attracted to them, or unsavory people, that way we can hopefully keep the streets safer and cleaner. So we were going to be doing that this month. Unfortunately, things kind of got moved around. So it'll be at the end of this month or beginning of May that we'll be doing that.
All right. Any discussion for the fine young officers from the DAB?
Officer Jensen, do you have any more information on the Brush Up Broadway project and any specifics for what you need from the neighborhood?
So I don't. If you want to send me, that's my email. Sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained today. But if you send me an email, I'll get in touch with the supervisor tomorrow. I'll get all the details on it, because that was something as well that was going to be going on this week and next, but it got pushed back as well due to just some various things that came up. But I know that they are pulling a bunch of manpower to attack it and put everything forward to get it cleaned up nice and as good as we can.
Okay.
So.
Great.
Any further discussion from the DAB? If not, I'll open it up to the public, and anybody who wants to speak from the public, please state your name and take it away.
Councilman, this is Matt from the fire department. You want to hear some of your district stats?
Yes, I will. I know while we've got these 2 officers here real quick, let me get the public discussion out of the way. Is that okay?
You bet.
All right. Any public discussion from regarding the police department? Go ahead. If not, I thought there was. I apologize. I thought there was someone here. I saw someone that had made a comment to me personally, and I thought I noticed him on. Let me check one more time.
Sorry to interrupt, but like I said, they can always reach out by way of email if needed, if they're not there now. So just pass my email out to them. Just let them know to reach out to me.
Okay, we'll do it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, Wichita Fire Department.
Sorry about that, sir. I didn't realize you put it out for PD questioning there. I had emailed Maddie a document that you could potentially share. And I have it pulled up if you want me to review it real quick with screen share. Basically, it's some safety tips. Close Before You Doze is a program through our community risk reduction that educates the public on the current dangers, fire dangers compared to years ago, and some small things that we can do to protect ourselves and give you a much better chances of surviving a home fire.
Matt, you do have control now if you want it.
Okay, I will. So this is what I was talking about, and this is just a quick sheet with 10 points, and it also has our community risk reduction contact information here. Scrolling down, our response statistics for March. What we're looking at here is the DAB dashboard. And this is something relatively new compared to what we've had in the past. And it gives a very accurate, up-to-date tracking of the incidents going on within your district and also compared to the other districts. So it's broken down into call types. On this document, scroll on down, and it further breaks those call types down. And I've also, on this document, had comparative years, March of 2020 and also 2019. One of the things it's my understanding, the DAB dashboard is something really new for us. We've come a long way in the last several years under Chief Snow and Chief Pavelski as far as upgrading our technology and where we can collect data better so we can best deploy assets. It's my understanding, sir, that this was made available to council just this week. And the interactive dashboard you can track by district, you can track by station, response area, everything, which is right here at district stats by time or call type legend there. And then it drops down station responses by district. Lots of information available to the council folk and also their liaisons. A lot of things going on right now. We have 8 fire recruits in our academy. Upcoming, they just started this past Monday. Upcoming next week, we have a multi-jurisdictional, multi-agency training mass casualty incident on Tuesday. They've had preparatory exercises. It's going to probably last about 5 or 6 hours. It has a hazmat rail car leak with a significant amount of students helping us out from Derby High being mulaged to simulate injuries. Recently, as the news is covered and bulletins been put out on City 7, we've had a tremendous, seems like this March, we've had a tremendous number of high risk, high fire index fire days. So, the high winds, the dry conditions of the fuels, the low humidities present challenges to each of us, not just the fire departments, but it's so easy for a random spark or from a grill to ignite your deck or the grass. We had a multiple alarm fire on Southwest Street roughly a month ago. And we've had several other wind-driven, wind-impacted fires. So open it up to questions if anybody has any questions.
Hey, Matt, I just wanted to comment. We did just approve this. The council did just approve that new statistics software. It's a great piece of software.
The analytics?
Yeah, the analytics. The purpose is to keep the public informed about what's going on. It's available. Do you have any information to pass along about where people can look that up anytime on the web?
The analytics side of it, this dashboard and the analytics, I don't know what all of that is public information. I know the dashboard information right now has been shared with all the council persons and staff. The analytics, I'm not that familiar with it. I can find that answer out for you though. I know
Sure.
the funding for that, and as you said, you approved it. Those analytics are going to help us again deploy our resources and best manage our resources. Right now, the hot spots in the city, it shows, by call type, by, time of day, everything. It's been 4 years since a study's been done, and lots changed in 24 years, and again, we'll be able to make a lot better decisions, fiscal decisions for the community with this.
Yeah, when I met with Chief Snow this past week, and she said it's basically you get a map when you're trying to predict things in the fire department. You get a map out and you use pens and markers, and it's very old fashioned. She described it, and this software will take us many generations forward in advancing. So it's going to be a big help in
it'll
determining,
be fantastic.
predicting where things might happen, where things have happened. But yeah, it's a great piece of software. And it also, this came up, pardon me, this discussion came up at council over the past couple of weeks because council also approved the fire department going out for a SAFER grant. And that grant is going to fund as many as 12 new firefighters and 1 brush truck, I think, maybe. Is that right?
I think they might be separate. The SAFER
Okay.
grant, if it's approved, will put on a 6 truck company, which would be those 12 individuals. And I believe you guys just voted, or it's in approval stages of multiple brush trucks and wildland that we can have available.
Right. And the discussion about that was that there seems to be quite a void for South and Southwest Wichita in that type of for that type of apparatus. And many times when those types of fire calls are happening, the nearest they're responding from station 16 all the way on the northwest side. So Chief Snow talked about how they're trying to decide whether to put those firefighters in that new truck at Station 12, which is out on West Street, Southwest Street, or Station 22, which is in our district on South Hydraulic. And I also made a comment that maybe the fire department should be looking at Station 19, which is just north of 47th and Broadway. So this predictive analytics software will help determine where those new firefighters go and where that truck goes. So looking forward to seeing.
We're very excited about that, sir. And like I said, it will give us exact information on where it should be best be positioned, whether it be 12s, 19s, or 22s. On the surface of things, any of those stations would enhance service to our community. All have reasonably good access to highways to go long distances, but you're correct. It would hopefully that SAFER grant will come through, and that'd be a huge benefit to the community.
Any discussion from the DAB for firefighter Bowen?
Councilman Sorella, this is Jessica Lucas. I had a question/comment. Just in the brief look that we got of the data presented, it appears that District 3 has the highest number of fires as well as medical calls. And I know it sounds like this is new software, but just wanted to note that and see if we had any sense for why that is. And I think we can all make some assumptions, but would like to see us be able to identify the why, and if there are some solutions we could deploy to reduce the number of fires and medical calls, if possible.
And to drop back to the analytics, Councilman was referring to, this is going to give us a lot of data on call types that, again, in the past, it was it was guesswork, where we was collaborating and gathering up hard information, hard files to try to figure out what's going on. This information you referenced, and you're right, District 3 for March had the highest number of fire alarms, highest medical alarms, and led in several of those other categories. Again, you see District 5, it depends a lot on the area. Typically, you're farther in suburban neighborhoods that are newer, have fewer fires. Contradicting that is District 6. They had quite a few fires out west there. But again, our community risk reduction, they're on top of that. Any trends, any things that we can do getting out to the schools to educate, any community projects we do. I know in the past in District 3, we've had cleanups, neighborhood cleanups, try to minimize some of the refuse and stuff that's found in alleyways. But I'm not sure if that answered your question, Jessica.
No, that's helpful. I have two other follow-ups. And I am new, so forgive me if I'm asking things folks already know. But I was wondering, have we ever done anything in regard to distribution of like fire alarms or carbon monoxide detectors, if indeed it looks like those were, factors that impact people? Is that something that's ever happened and it may not be possible?
Absolutely. We've got a smoke detector program where you contact on that front sheet that I'd reviewed, the close before you doze fact sheet. That's our contact information. We've had a smoke detector program in place for, I think it's 8 or 10 years, where you can contact this number, give them your address, and we will provide smoke detectors, provide installation. You go to the fire department website, the community risk reduction, they have a lineup of prevention programs that can help reduce the risk to you and your family, and also have, cooking safety tips. One of the things and again, at the expense of sounding like a broken record, one of the simplest things we can do to protect you and your family is at night, or if you sleep during the day, if you work an alternative shift, is close the door to the room that you're sleeping in. A closed door can provide literally 20, 30, 40 minutes and have fire raging on the other side of it. It's not uncommon for us to go to fires in a closed bedroom door. You'd have the living room, kitchen, the hallway, the bathroom, and another bedroom completely burn out. You open the closed bedroom door and it's immaculate. There's not even smoke damage. So it's an incredible message that our community risk reduction division has been pushing hard for the last several years, and it costs very little. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox. Is there any other questions?
I just want one last follow-up regarding the medical calls. It sounds like you're now able to track those more specifically, so we could know if in District 3 they were primarily mental health calls or primarily heart attacks. Are you
Absolutely.
tracking it that closely now?
With the new analytics program, they'll be able to break down medical calls by type. One of the things we have a Sedgwick County 911, they're going to be implementing a new CAD dispatching system that should be incredibly beneficial for Wichita Fire and WPD. The capabilities of this new system is just mind-blowing. And, from data gathering to, better tracking of resources, you know, and we're hoping maybe about 13, 14 months that'll go live for our partners at Sedgwick County at the 911 center. So there's a lot of components, and we're learning as we go, but Fire Chief Snow, Chief Pavelski, Chief Gaddis, they are putting things into place that is bringing our fire department technologically, you know, just leaps and bounds ahead of where we've been the past, well, my career since 91. It's unbelievable what this department is compared to 30 years ago.
Anyone else from the DAB? Got anything, Gerald? Anyone from the public? All right, Matt. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. You folks have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. All right, we will move on now to the public library. Do we have anybody from the library?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Jones. I'm the communications specialist for the Wichita Public Library. And I just have a few things to share with you today. As a reminder, all Wichita Public Library locations, including your Walters Branch Library, is open for in-person services. If you haven't stopped by to see the new space, I encourage you all to do so. You can browse shelves, use public computing, use our Wi-Fi services. We're just asking that customers continue to wear a mask and social distance when you're able. Upcoming events at the library, we're still offering a bunch of virtual programs. Next Wednesday, April 14th at 1:30 p.m. on Zoom, we are hosting our Senior Wednesday program. And this month, we're inviting Wayne Bryan with Music Theater Wichita to come and speak about their upcoming 50th anniversary season and how music theater has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. I have season tickets every year, so I'm gonna sneak in to this Senior Wednesday, even though I'm not like in the right age range, just because I love music theater. Wayne Bryan's awesome, and I'm excited to see what they have to talk about. Every month, we do a Tuesday Topics program with the League of Women Voters Wichita Metro, and these programs are designed to look at two different sides to a current event topic that's been going around in the news recently. And this month, we are going to have a discussion about police reform. This will be on Tuesday, April 27th at noon. We're going to have a panel discussion with Dr. Michael Berzer from Wichita State University School of Criminal Justice, Gwen Grant, who is the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Kansas City, and Wanda Parker Givens, who is the deputy chief of police with the Wichita Police Department. So be sure to mark those down on your calendars if those sound interesting, and visit wichitalibrary.org/events to see our full schedule of upcoming programs. We are gearing up for our summer reading program. This will start in May. We're going to open registration on May 17th and begin on June 1st with our reading challenge. And based on discussions from last month's DAB meeting, we were able to work with Park and Recreation, and we are going to do a summer concert series at Clapp Park. This will happen, I believe, most Mondays in June and then a few Mondays in July. So we're going to do a two-part kind of concert series. We'll do mornings at Knapsker Park at 10:30, and then we'll do afternoons at Clapp Park at 3 p.m. And we're bringing in some really fun, family-friendly, educational concerts, band groups to perform at the park this summer. And we thought that this would be a great way for some safe outdoor social distancing fun, lively music, and some great educational opportunities for our young readers for the summer reading program. And then the last thing I want to talk about, I did set a meeting for next week with our Walters Grand Opening Committee. And at that meeting, I hope to determine a date for the official grand opening of the branch. We plan to invite the Walters family to be part of the celebration. And if they're unable to attend, we hope to live stream it so they can watch in real time. And we're going to determine speakers and discuss all the logistics for that event. Maddie is on that committee, and we have also invited a few other community partners, including Denise Sherman from the Kansas African American Museum, to be part of the discussion. So hopefully next month at the DAB meeting, I will have an update with a date for that grand opening celebration. And that's all I really have to report, and I will stand for any questions.
Anyone from the DAB for Sean? Anyone from the public for Sean? All right, Sean, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, you too. All right, moving on. Let's go to the public agenda. Now, we have no scheduled public agenda items this month. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on off agenda items? Maddie, do you see anything on YouTube or Facebook Live?
Check. I do not see anything.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to off agenda items. I did want to talk about a couple of things that I probably should have put on the agenda. I apologize, Maddie. First off, I wanted to discuss real quick what the DAB's feelings are on electing a chair and a vice chair for this advisory board. Nearly all of the council members, in fact, none of the council members do their DABs like we do. All of the DABs have a chair and a vice chair. And my personal feelings is that's kind of the way I think District 3 needs to go. The district advisory boards are an advisory board to the council member. And my personal feelings are that the council member should not be running the meetings. So I'd like to entertain some discussion about that from the DAB.
So how
Well,
would
my thoughts are, I'm sorry, Richard.
how would those roles manifest in specific actions on the board? Like would a chair only cast a vote in the event of a tie, or I mean, I'm not familiar, I guess, with what those roles typically would do on the advisory board. So might be a place to start.
Yeah, I think you're right, because you're on the Animal Control Advisory Board, and you're right. I think the chair actually does not vote on anything except for ties. So maybe that's something that I need to check into before we make this move. I'll definitely notate that.
I think previously I remember that James had said, I don't run these meetings, these are your meetings. But without having that designated person then to really orchestrate the conversation and the running of the rules, Robert's rules, it's hard to say that you're not actually running the meeting.
Yeah,
so
that's kind of how I feel.
It sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Mike, did you have something?
Yeah, my first thought is if it's not broken, don't fix it. But anyway, I think in the past, Maddie's done an excellent job of selecting somebody when James is running late, or if James couldn't be there. And my thoughts are we should develop leadership. So I think if you can't be there and somebody has to run the meeting, let Maddie talk to whoever might be interested in a little bit of authority and a little bit of feeling of what it's like to guide a meeting and to get through it. And that gives them, some confidence if they ever have to do it again, or if they ever decide to excel to a different position of authority. So I think it's a great way to take the members of the board and let them have an opportunity to be in charge.
Sorry, as some info, I know other DABs, they call it a pro tem if the council member doesn't want to run the meeting or go through it, and the other pro tems do vote on things. So if a council member has identified a pro tem to run the meeting, they still vote on all things. So I'm guessing that is what you would want it to look like.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I think so. If that's what the DAB is advising or would like, yes.
I would like, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Cindy.
I'd like to see us have a chair and a vice chair for the board that takes on those leadership roles for the board. And I think it's, Richard, pretty uncommon practice. I mean, I've served on tons and tons of boards that a chair wouldn't vote on any anything that comes up. So I that's kind of intriguing to me that the chair wouldn't vote on the animal advisory board. Anyways.
Councilman Cirillo, this is Jessica Lucas. My question would be just making sure that it's well defined what the role of the chair and vice chair is supposed to do. You know, are you still crafting the agenda and the job is just to facilitate the meeting, or is the chair and vice chair going to do more of I just think it's important to have that established in advance, so everyone understands the role and expectations.
Yes, and I think I could answer that. No, Maddie will continue to craft the agenda with the advice of anybody from the DAB who wants to, and this is a good point to bring up to anyone. If you have any items that you would like to see on the agenda, you should be contacting Maddie before the meeting, in the week before the meeting, I would say, to get those items on our agenda. But Maddie's going to continue to craft the agenda, right? Maddie, I don't want to speak for you, but that's
Correct.
your job,
Yep.
right?
Yep, staff gives me the items that are coming before DAB, like such as zoning cases or presentations that council's wanting feedback on. So those all come through me. And then if the DAB votes by majority to include something additional, I can also add that to the agenda as well, or field any public requests for the public agenda.
I know Ron Tracy was wanting to chime in. Ron?
We needed, is that a full term, 1 year service or 2 year service, or what does it, the term of the pro tem have to do, or, and as one of the Jessica said, what other duties is required of that job?
My initial, that's a good question. My initial thought would be it would just be for one term. Everybody serves one term on the DAB, and then you're reappointed after that one term. And as we did tonight, everybody's reappointed on the same night. You can only serve a total of 8 consecutive years. But yeah, I think the chair, my advice would be for the 1 year. But again, it's up for discussion for the DAB.
I mean, it could kind of be like the vice mayor idea, right? Doesn't that kind of rotate every so often, the vice mayor?
Yeah, that's yearly, that's annual.
So maybe there could be something built into that. I mean, if we want to lead, we could build something into that to make it more than just, kind of a token position, but actually to maybe work with Maddie to add things to a DAB schedule. I mean, I guess anybody can really do that as part of the public. I don't know.
And I think having both a chair and a vice chair, I think having that vice chair position in case the chair is, goes on vacation or is not able to lead, which is, I think, kind of the intention of having a vice mayor. So if the mayor is not available to lead the city council meeting, that there is a vice mayor that can actually lead that meeting. So it's kind of the same concept, but I would have to agree that I think having those as 1 year terms, I think would be ideal. Just my 2 cents.
And I should also, it's something I just thought about. I should also say that this ethics policy we're getting ready to hear about and discuss tonight will actually fall under the DAB members. So we'll talk more about ethics later tonight, but that's something to be thinking about too, I suppose, if we're going to make this change, that DAB members will fall under this new ethics policy that the mayor and council are currently discussing. Anyone else?
Would the vice chair set in for you any other meetings during your absence out of town?
On council, you mean?
Not particularly councils, but I know you're on several committees, or you will be. And would the vice chair on this group set in for you on them meetings?
No. At this point in time, I'm on I volunteered to be on the Cowtown board and the chief elected officers board. Those are the only other two boards that I'll be serving on at this point that I've been asked to serve on. But no, that would not be included. All right, so I guess we'll table this discussion then. Do you think is that the general consensus? We'll table this and look into it further and maybe discuss it next month?
I think the only other thing that we need to consider, Jared, is how if we go with that model where we had a chair and a vice chair, how those positions will be selected. And I honestly can't say that I even know how for other district advisory boards those are selected. Joseph might know, because I know you served on DAB 1, right, Joseph?
That is correct. And from my knowledge, the DAB board member expressed interest to the council person at that time. The council person established a level of demonstrated trust and, of course, was open to anybody who wanted to serve in that role and appointed it to that position. But it was open to anyone who wanted to do it the following year.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Probably a good way to do it.
Be volunteer, and then do you think we'd need a vote of the board, or just take it a volunteer and the council person names them, or what?
Well, that's what I was curious about, whether the DAB would nominate people, and then the DAB would then vote based on who was nominated. I'd be a little bit curious as to how it's done at district different boards. I work in the nonprofit world, so I know how it's done in the nonprofit world, but it's a little bit different. I know with MAPC that somebody's nominated to be the chair every year, somebody's nominated to be the vice chair, and then they vote. So I just don't know how it's done, like on the animal advisory board.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a problem?
But things to consider
with just Jared, approaching someone that he thinks would do a good job. And I mean, that person's going to have to work closely with Maddie and Jared. And I think a lot of people could volunteer, but perhaps that's really your call to make Jared as the council member. Who do you want in that role? And then if we decide moving on that it should be more of a formal process, we can make that decision. But to start, to me, it feels like it'd be appropriate for you to identify someone that you want in that role.
Yeah, Jared?
I agree.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, because I don't think this is going to come up very often. So most of the time, the councilman member's always been to the meeting. So try it on a limited scale. You appoint somebody or talk to somebody and try it and see what happens. We're looking for you for leadership, so bring it on.
Okay.
Maybe Jared, can we table this discussion further until maybe our next meeting? We can all have a chance to kind of look into the areas that are of question to each of us and bring that to a longer discussion during the next month. because I think our ethics policy may consume quite a bit of time
Yeah,
tonight.
yes, I agree.
We also have a zoning case, by the way, first before we get to the ethics policy.
Okay, yes, yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's table this discussion. We'll discuss it again in May. And thank you for that. I appreciate all the discussion. All right, number 6, Matt Williams. Hey, Matt, sorry to keep you.
Oh, no problem. Good evening, everybody. Matt Williams for planning staff. Let me see if I can get my screen shared real quick. Okay, so just one case tonight. This is zoning case 2021, number 9. The applicant in this case is requesting the rezoning of their property from limited commercial and single family to general commercial. This property is generally located just northeast of 55th Street and Broadway, and the applicant proposes to build a shop, an office building, and an outdoor storage yard for his carpentry business. Here's the site plan that the applicant provided us. So this use is defined as a construction, sales, and service business, and the zoning code allows this by right in the general commercial zoning district. There is also general commercial zoning just across the street and more along Broadway. General commercial zoning is compatible with the regional commercial designation of the comprehensive plan for this area. And properties that are currently surrounding this site are zoned limited commercial and single family. The site is also located within the South Wichita-Hayesville area plan. That plan identifies this site as a potential place for low density residential. The South Wichita-Hayesville plan also seeks to discourage strip commercial development along the area's arterial streets. The proposed zone change from limited commercial to general commercial doesn't discourage the strip development, but the area currently has multiple developed and undeveloped commercial properties on this portion of Broadway. The plan also considers undeveloped commercial zone properties primed for commercial development. So it's staff's opinion that the proposed use is mostly in conformance with our adopted plans and policies, and staff is recommending that the general commercial zoning request be approved subject to a protective overlay. And that protective overlay is going to limit some of the uses that can be used on site. It's also going to require solid screening, landscaping requirements, making sure that the building material that he's storing on site is not visible from the street, and then making sure that trash is located away from the single family zoning nearby, as well as a couple things about setbacks and lighting. So here's the zoning map. You can see that the red square here is the limited commercial property that it currently is. There is a tiny sliver of single family zoning on the far east side of the property. And then general commercial is shown in pink. So you can see that there's quite a bit of general commercial zoning right around here as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about it from the dam.
Yeah, I've got one. The building or the lot north of the proposed area, is that a bank?
Yes, that.
Okay, I've been in that area. I just wanted to make sure I was familiar with what you're talking about. Thank you.
Yep, that's a bank. And then the property just to the east of that is single family zoning that's vacant right now, I believe.
All right, thank you.
So Matt, so the single family property that's adjacent to the rezoning that we're talking about tonight, were they notified of the development or the changes that were potentially taking place? And if so, did you receive any pushback or any concerns?
Yeah, so this property is under an acre. So I believe that the notification area on this was 200 feet. So anybody that owns property within 200 feet would have gotten a letter about this. The property owner was also required to put up a sign on their property letting people know about it. And this is not my case, but I heard from the planner whose case this was that they have not gotten any phone calls or any input from anyone on this case.
Thank you so much. My second question is, how long has the property been vacant? Do you know that by chance?
Let's see if that is in the staff report.
Sorry, I couldn't find it there, so I thought maybe, and if not, it's not a big deal. That's really just a question out of curiosity.
Yeah,
Not
it
a
looks
big
like the planner found an old aerial of this site from 1997, and it shows that it was vacant in 1997 as well. So it seems like quite a long time.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Yep.
Is the applicant here? Would the applicant like to speak to the DAB?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Can you see me? Yeah. Yeah, the property's been vacant for quite a long time. It actually right now has a chain link fence because of the trash. Right south to that, there's have been, and we fenced it because everybody's just dumping trash in that area right there. And I feel bad, for the next door lot that's vacant there, but they just hide under those bushes and all that stuff and then just dump tires and all that kind of stuff. So that's the purpose of it, was fence. So a lot of that trash wouldn't just stay close to those bushes. It's gonna get, once everything gets built and all that stuff, it's gonna have a screening on it. So where you can't get any, visible to that area, but and it helps protect the bank too, because it has a lot of customers that go through there. So it just, keep the area cleaner and safer too.
Any discussion from the DAB? Any discussion from the public on this zoning request? I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion to approve the zoning recommendation by Joe Shepherd, seconded by Mike Luke. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
I'll be
Thank you.
abstaining.
Yes, I apologize, Cindy. So the motion passes 10-0-1. All right.
Thanks,
thank you,
everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you to the
Thank you.
applicant for coming tonight too.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Trying to stay organized here. It's been a whirlwind the last few weeks. My goodness. So we're going on to 7 now. The proposed city council ethics policy. And Maddie, go ahead.
All right, guys, sorry, I was muted there. I have a video.
The city council is dedicated.
I have a video and PowerPoint to show you guys. And I will be, this is a listening session today, so I will just be recording any comments or questions you guys have. Hopefully you all have had a chance to review the proposed policy and have prepared some comments. I'm very limited in any questions I can personally answer. It's, again, mostly just a listening session to record feedback that I will be providing to city council. All right, I'm going to share my screen and play this video for you guys. Give me 1 second. Okay, do you guys see the screen?
Yes.
All right, let me play the video for you.
To adopting a transparent ethics policy to best establish a guide for ethical behavior and effective governance. The Council has been working with community partners and the National League of Cities to help draft the strongest policy possible. The goal of the policy is to promote public confidence in elected and appointed leaders by establishing a consistent and transparent ethical standard of conduct and assist leaders with ethical decision-making. The policy would apply to both elected leaders and appointed boards, including district advisory boards. The policy includes guidelines for avoiding conflicts of interest, regulations on the receipts of gifts, standards to encourage impartial decision-making, establishment of an independent ethics advisory board, requirements for ethics training, whistleblower protection guidelines, and more. After gathering public feedback, the policy will go back to Council to be adopted in May. The full draft policy can be read on wichita.gov. The Council wants your input on the proposed ethics policy. You can provide input at District Advisory Board meetings, by sharing your thoughts via the city's social media, or by emailing council members. Contact information for each of them can be found on wichita.gov. Please weigh in and help us make the City Council ethics policy the best it can be.
All right, were you all able to hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Basically then this is, I'm just gonna open up the floor for you guys as a DAB to share any prepared comments you have with me or questions, or to hold your own discussion on this, and I will just be capturing the feedback, all right?
Don't everyone talk at once.
I mean, I could start out.
Go ahead, Rich.
You guys can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Okay. So, I mean, it's very clear that the purpose is for elected and appointed officials, but I think it's important that we be clear that the need for ethics and ethical behavior extends to staff as well. There are people in the community who are not happy with some of the decisions that some of the staff are making, the direction that the city's taking with either development or with our animal shelter, for instance, can be quite controversial if made without input from the community. So I think we have to be critical of the term ethics policy and focus on that transparency piece, because I think that a part of the ethics of the behavior of the public, whether they're on the boards or they're electeds or their staff, is that what they're doing is known, right? So that's why we have Cora and Coma, but Cora and Coma are sort of afterthoughts, I mean, for the public in terms of getting at data, which is why I think it's important that we have our departments, for instance, have policies set to whenever there is a call for public engagement, it must go on this specific departmental calendar, which then gets fed into the main calendar on the homepage. One point that people can go and look and see at this stuff. It's too easy with a plethora of social media outlets and other ways of communicating today to play a shell game. You can satisfy the requirements of Cora Coma by announcing that you're going to have this meeting on Instagram when really the majority of your people are on YouTube or on wichita.gov. So having a single authoritative place that's mandatory posting, I think, is a part of the ethical dealing of information and provisioning access to that information. You know, one of the ways that we restrict the public's access to information is by having board meetings that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when most of the public are working, or not providing until relatively recently an electronic opportunity to engage, such as we're doing this evening, so that single parents, families, people with work schedules still have an opportunity to review the discussions around important pieces that are being determined, right? Whether it's development or this ethics policy. And you know, I think in general, it does what it says it's going to do. I don't have really a whole lot of concerns with the actual content of the policy. I think there were some questions that were asked of us, like what would you expect to see or hear in the community that would suggest the mayor and appointed boards are operating ethically. One is there would be a larger number of voices in the conversation, because then I know that that the city is making a concerted, dedicated effort to reach all areas of the city, not just places that have access to a web-based survey. So there would be a diversity of voices at the table, and that would also be reflected in the decision-making processes about how to move forward with different projects. So, I mean, ethically, we're not looking for a Napoleon, right? I mean, ethics, to me, ethics is when multiple viewpoints can come together and have a place at the table and have an impact on the shaping of some decision. So some of the stuff that I've been engaged with over the last couple of years, you hammer away, you come, and you give a lot of input, and none of it is addressed either in the short-term plan or the long-term plan. So ethics, I think, has to include the voices. What would increase your trust that the council and appointed boards are acting with high ethical standards? A track record. I don't know that there's anything else really. How would you define a friend in relation to council relationships? I think we should do it no differently than how any of us would define a friend. A dictionary definition. I could be wrong about that. Maybe friends with lots of money. I don't know. I mean, anybody can be an influence, whether they have money or not. I don't see anything wrong with them accepting food. I do have a problem with the drinking. We've had one of our electeds going the wrong way on a highway recently, but more importantly, it may also open up some amount of risk. If I know for work, like we can't put our alcohol, if I did drink, on the tab and have the company pay for it, because that puts them in a weird place. So should there be a penalty for abuse of the complaint process? So if you or I were complaining about a particular person, and that's probably going to be the standard, reasonable person standard, I would imagine. But making false statements about a person, I think, is already handled in law, and it could maybe just be like restated that making false statements about a person that are injurious, blah, 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 is not something that is allowed. But I think I don't know. I think the state does the penalties on that already. The right direction for the city council's code of ethics. I mean, a right direction kind of implies that there's a destination. So is this policy going to get us to the destination? I don't know that we've ever really talked as a community about destination in regards to ethics. I mean, one would hope that we all kind of agree on a basic trajectory that we're going to follow throughout this life, right? To try to be kinder, work with people's dignity, be conscious that, it's a good first step. But I don't have a whole lot of optimism for policies, because ultimately it's what is here. If I'm motivated to do this stuff because I want to, seek office somewhere or start a business, that might not be conducive to getting to our destination, as opposed to really wanting to serve a wide part of the community. So this is a start, but we have to be realistic about what we can expect about these things. I think that, I mentioned what else should the code of ethics include? And I don't know, it just seems like departmental policies, having a diverse group represented and having an impact would be I don't know that a code of ethics, I'm not familiar enough with the code of ethics to say that that's what happens. I mean, departmental policy is open sharing of that data, the fire data that we saw before with the dashboard. I mean, that would be nice on opendata.gov, right? So I don't know, I think there's an ethics of showing and hiding data. And we've been seeing more of that, in my opinion, lately in the city. So I don't know. It's a good first step, but I don't think it's going to solve some of the problems that we're deeply concerned about in this city. Some of the people are deeply concerned about. So that's it.
And I'm gonna bring something up that maybe will provide a little bit of guidance as to this discussion as well too. Is I think a lot of the mayor's concern in bringing up this ethics policy is accepting gifts and council members accepting gifts or favors. That's very important. Things like that are heavily weighed or heavily thought out in this policy. So maybe that will point, maybe that will provide a discussion point. Again, this isn't, I want you guys to advise me, but one of the questions that I would like some input on is how do you draw the line, or is there a line at all to be drawn between campaign finance limits and or campaign finance rules and this ethics policy? Do you think that falls under ethics in general, or should it be separate, or what?
You're talking about the no gifts of more than $150.
Yes, that would be considered under this current ethics policy. That's separate from campaign finance rules, which are set by the state.
This is Jessica. I'm obviously very familiar with state campaign finance rules. I'm less familiar from a city standpoint. So I'm a registered lobbyist and I have to fill out reports for any food or drink that I would buy for an elected official, but I don't have to do that for a city council person. I don't think that's the expectation there in the city, but it does seem really gray. What is campaign finance versus just general ethics for how you should conduct yourself as an elected official? On the friend thing, I do think that is what I have found with the legislature is if you're friends with someone, they have some gray area where you don't necessarily have to report if you bought your friend a meal. I do think there should be some definition of what is a friend. If you knew your friend before you were an elected official, that feels more like it falls under the definition of friend. But if you become an elected official and develop a friendship with someone, that's still a donor influencer relationship, even if you call it friendship, in my view. So I do think that friend definition, people can abuse that. I have seen it abused. So I have concerns about that, but I don't really understand how you thread the needle between campaign finance, which if that's all determined by the state, I'm not sure there's much we can do to influence that, and then general just good government ethics, personal conduct, which feels like a big part of what the city is wanting to do, is establish some conduct expectations.
So Jared, I'm curious, was this this particular conversation came up at a meeting, I'm assuming in regards to the campaign finance, because what I find intriguing about the campaign finance compared to this ethics policy is that you're going to have people that, and certainly after they've been elected and when they're reelected, you're going to find people that are receiving campaign donations, max campaign donations of $500 from developer after developer after developer after developer. You're going to see that. I've looked at a lot of campaign finance reports, and you're going to see organizations, companies, businesses that want to influence making those campaign donations. And I know that I hear, as a member of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, or MAPC, as George would call it, we hear that donations are received, and that allows certain developers to get contracts and those types of things. And how do you actually decide whether there's been violations there or not? Or, I mean, it's really, really difficult, I think, to figure out whether something unethical has occurred and somebody is voting a certain way because their campaign has been donated to, or it just happens to be that that's the best contractor developer for a project. How do you decide that?
Jared, can I ask a question? Hello, Jared?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Sorry, I was muted. Go ahead, Mike.
That's all right. According to the agenda, this goes back to the council for a workshop in April of 2021. So here we are for the first part of April, and then it is adopted in May of 2021. It sounds like we got a lot of information we've got to go through and so a thought process. And then how do we get back to you guys before you go to council sometime in April? Is there any chance it's going to be prolonged a little bit?
You have to do it tonight, Michael. We need your decision immediately.
Yeah, well, that's not ethical. I mean, I don't have any answers. I'm not even too sure I have questions without giving a little more thought. I've been looking at this for the last few days, but it's not my field of expertise, except do the right thing is always ingrained in your heart and your mind. I just worry about doing it too fast. That's all. Thank you.
Good question, Mike, and thank you. And the only thing that I would say to quickly answer, give some sort of feedback on what you asked, is this has actually been an ongoing topic that the council has been discussing. I believe they've had 3 workshops before I was appointed. They've already had 3 workshops to discuss this. There, as you might imagine, there has been a lot of discussion about it from other council members, a lot of concern from other council members. So the council has actually been discussing this for quite a while. There's a workshop meeting that I would advise all of you to watch on the city's YouTube channel. There was one of those workshop meetings that is public record. And it's very interesting to watch. There was quite spirited discussion on the council. Just go to the city's YouTube channel and search ethics. So Maddie, did you have something?
No, I was just going to reiterate that. So tonight's an opportunity for DAB to share feedback, but if you guys still need time to collect your thoughts, that feedback can also be emailed to council or to me to include in my memo to council. So if any of you think about things after tonight and just want to shoot me an email, I'll make sure it gets put in the memo.
I watched the study session and thought that they did a good job of presenting a well-rounded policy. I don't think it addresses, like Richard, you're asking if 50 people donated and all of those happen to work for the same company. This policy doesn't address that. That is a campaign finance issue. And the technical answer is if 50 people from the same company wrote a check for $500 from their personal account, they could do that. Where there would be a problem is if it was found out that the owner of that company gave them all a $500, bonus or something in return for that. But again, this ethics policy is really just about setting some standards for personal conduct, but doesn't address campaign finance. And I don't think that's something we can influence from this board or even the city.
So I don't know if it's so much of a question. Hi, this is Daisy. I'm a little bit confused with what we're kind of talking about here, about the ethics and how the staff ties into or pertains to decisions being made or items being pushed through or getting things done for those who, I guess, quote unquote, can pay or donate to whatever. So I'm a little bit confused with what we're talking about. As a normal resident, not part of this DAB, my issue in the city of Wichita never disappoints with this is, or employees, if that's what we're talking about when we say staff, is that they never disappoint, because it seems like every city employee, whether you're having problems with dumping illegally, things that need to get done, there is that lack of enthusiasm to help. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. You ask, hey, how can we take care of these potholes? Hey, what can we do to improve this neighborhood? Hey, we have illegal dumping. I don't know. Call here, go there. You get the runaround to the point that you don't want to do anything. So I'll kind of share my example. The reason or how I led to this, to be on this DAB, was because my mom lives in Plainview, and she would get fined all the time for illegal dumping. And I'm like, how? It's not possible for this 60-plus-year-old woman to be dumping when she's living there for 20 years. You guys just come and give her a citation and say, if you don't clean it or do something, we're going to fine you. And I had to join my neighborhood meeting in Meade because Plainview didn't have one. Got to know people that I consider my friends. We live in the same neighborhood, who were able to show me where I needed to go to get things done. So I'm just confused as far as where this ethics is kind of coming through, because, how does the staff, I guess, push items through or sway in one way to another, when it just seems like no matter if I call or somebody else's call or you need help, you always just get that feeling of, oh, why are you bothering, or go here, go there, and then people just get tired and then just don't have their issues addressed. Sorry, I hope I make sense, Maddie. That's kind of like where I'm at right now with this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, to me that sounds like a customer service issue. I don't know that the ethics policy would really address that, but that is disappointing to hear. You'd hope that any city employee you're reaching is enthusiastic about helping the people who are paying their salaries solve problems. I can talk more with you about that after this meeting. In general, no employee should be making a resident feel like a bother or giving anyone the runaround. I know some of our reporting things get reported to departments incorrectly. And so there is some channels that get things dealt with more quickly than others, but I'm sorry to hear that there's been customer service issues.
And not necessarily for me, Maddie. It's just, I guess I'm trying to find the correlation, because when Richard was talking about like the staff, I understand like our council members and our, the ethics policy, but when we're talking about staff, I guess that's where the confusion is from, because I haven't encountered a staff member that is, if I donate, or I don't think I've ever made any donation to anything to get stuff done. My problem, or in general, the consensus from the feedback that I get from people in Plainview, and take in mind, there's that language barrier. Mostly I'm Hispanic. Hispanic people will reach out to me and say, hey, this is what's going on. I haven't had any issues because I was able to get my issues resolved, because my neighborhood Meade has, other residents, like for example, George, that will fight for us to get things done in our neighborhood where things are done, no problem whatsoever. Plainview doesn't have that situation. So that's my confusion, I guess, and maybe I was, brought something into the mix that maybe not necessarily part of this discussion, but is where does this staff, our concern, I guess, for staff and ethics come into play regarding the ethics for like our council member. I guess that's where I'm trying to go with that, or understand.
I think those are probably in the departmental policies or in the HR policies of the city that would define codes of behavior, expected levels of customer service, is what I'm thinking. I didn't know that Plainview did not have a neighborhood association.
They
Plainview
do.
does
They
not have a
didn't.
neighborhood association.
They didn't at that time, or not that anybody knows about. I mean, I know that, well, the participation is almost none or null at this point. Richard, would you be able to enlighten me? Because I'm still confused. When you said staff and ethical and their possibility of they having some kind of a sway in I guess unethical things. Can you give me an example? Because I honestly I don't understand it, and that's where I'm kind of confused.
Well, my thing is just one example is my understanding of ethics. It has to include the sharing of information.
Okay.
You can't show and hide information when it serves you, or ever. If you're a city that you want the National League of Cities to smile upon you for all of the great work you're doing with civic engagement, then you have to work diligently and everywhere you can expose your data, make sure that meetings are announced. Okay, so one thing in particular is it came up, I don't know if it was Robert Layton specifically that came up with this or someone with an MAPC or another member of staff who decided that, we only need to announce zoning changes to, whoever can see this little sign in the yard or to the houses 75 or 200 feet around that area. That to me constricts and cuts off communication across the neighborhoods, as if development on a street corner in District 1 has nothing to do with what's going on here in District 3 or could potentially go on here in District 3. I think it does matter personally, and I think that kind of restriction is an unethical action. There's nothing legal that backs me up. There's nothing that says they can't do that. Okay, but I'm out here in the streets and I hear people screaming about stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So I got to say, maybe we don't know, or maybe there is something.
That is
That's
awesome.
an example of a staff person.
That is awesome, Richard. Yeah, I didn't know, so I'm just trying to not sit idle and just like, oh, I know, and I really didn't know. So thank you, because I had not even thought about it that way. So you definitely opened my eyes, and I'm getting a little bit of a better grasp regarding it.
Yeah, Daisy, I think the biggest bang for your buck is to get your neighborhood association active again and to start leading in your own neighborhood activities that will increase rapport between neighbors and knowledge of each other. Just getting two people together to go, hi, can work wonders for a neighborhood. And a lot of those dumping situations and things like that can start to go away if neighbors pull together and make it happen. So if you want to work on that, I'm more than happy to work with you on that. And I'm not going to volunteer Joseph because I know he's engaged in a neighborhood association building activity of his own, but he may be able to provide a 30-minute chat at some point in the process to share findings and what's working and empowering those neighborhood associations. So
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that.
please hold me to that. Mhm.
Councilman Cirillo and Maddie, I have a couple of things that I want to provide, and I apologize. I have the tendency to talk fast, So I apologize in advance, and I'm happy to email these thoughts to you afterwards, so that way you can kind of like just copy and paste if that
If
works.
you have them typed, I would love for you to email them to me so I can cross-reference what I'm about to type as fast as I can right now.
Absolutely. Thank you in advance. So the first thing, I didn't have a chance to watch the video that you showed at the beginning, so I appreciated that. I didn't realize that the city had been working with the National League of Cities, which I think is great. So I would particularly like to know what piece of the framework that the National League of Cities or the NLC has provided did we take in consideration when implementing or crafting this policy. That's the first thing. And then piggybacking off of that, are the sister cities or peer cities that we have looked to that have ethics policies that are known as best practices, and are those, which of those best practices are infused in this policy as well? As I look at the definitions, there were a couple of things in this a couple of words or language that was used in the policy that is perhaps not outlined in the definitions. I appreciated that there was a lot provided in the definitions piece, but I think that there's a couple other words used that don't clearly define what they mean. So I think in one section, it talks about cyberbullying from a particular council member and or agents. I would like to know how agents are defined. I think that's really important because we've seen that as be a really big topic at our city council meeting. And so I think it's important to define that so everyone is on the same page. My next question or point has to deal with the measurement of the policy. I think that's really important. A policy without teeth serves no good. And just some of these things I think are great ideas, but I would love to see how we're going to measure these things, specifically in under Statement of Policy, Section C and Section E. I would like to know how we're going to measure those two things. How are we going to ensure that the expenditures made by the city are in the interest of the city? How's that being defined? As well as how are we measuring, making sure that the individuals who are elected are improving the operations and productivity by using their time wisely? How are we measuring that, and how are we monitoring that now? Would be a question that I have. Letter N, I would refer back to the F for consistency purposes. I mean, we clearly define transactions with officials, family, friends, and business entities who have an interest. But when we get down to letter N and talk about prohibiting the hiring of officials, relatives, I'm just wondering why we don't include family and friends, et cetera, or business entities in N, but we outline it in F. So that, and then I really just have, I don't know if I would call them concerns, but I would love if the council could really take a hard and deeper look into how they are choosing to select members who will serve on the ethics review board. I'm not necessarily sure if I'm in love with the idea of a lottery system for that. But I also understand that to eliminate any perceived notion of bias, there's not really many options that you can do. So anyways, long story short, I definitely think an ethics policy is necessary. I think it's very clear over the past year or so, we have proven that we need an ethics policy. I just want to make sure that in the implementation of this policy that we're not kind of shooting ourselves in the foot and creating a slippery slope. And so I would just really appreciate knowing, you know, what part of the NLC framework has been adopted into this policy, because I think that would make me a little bit more comfortable to know that this isn't something that we're just creating on a whim. It's something that other cities have actually deployed, and it's proven to work. And we can point to those cities as evidence of proof to create a level of trust with people who feel the way Richard has stated, that regardless of what policy you implement, doesn't matter, right? But I think if we're able to point back to some of those best practices in other cities that have deployed a framework that alleviates that distrust. And I'll type up and send it to you.
I think that random draw method could kind of come back and bite us in the butt too. I mean, it's certainly not going to guarantee that the most qualified person to sit on this or that is going to get picked. So I can see why people might have some problems with that.
Have we adjusted the removal of office, the people from the office, if they've got in an ethics situation, fully, so we could not have the problem we had with the former councilman?
There was a couple of things on whistleblower protection. The city will not tolerate intimidation, coercion, or discrimination of any kind against officials, employees, or other individuals. We should probably have a period right there. But it goes on to say who voice opposition to unlawful action. I get it. It's under the whistleblower protection. So maybe that's just a specific way of saying that, but it just seems like you could have ended it after individuals. And then in 4, violations or suspected violations may be submitted on a confidential basis by the person complaining. I would say that is a must. It must be confidential. It puts everybody, I think, in a better mindset that due diligence is being done to protect both the person complaining, the person being complained against. So yeah, I would just change may for must on that one.
Do we know? I know it says that for the ethics advisory board that outside legal counsel will be deployed. So does that mean that we're going to be using a third-party legal consultant and not the actual legal that is hired through the city? I'm not sure if we know the answer to that yet. But
I do not have the answer to that, but which section was that in?
I believe
Is it on page 4 somewhere?
I believe so.
It's under Ethics Advisory Board.
Yeah.
Starts on page 3.
Oh yeah,
board
yeah. It's on page 3 in the last sentence of the first paragraph under Ethics Advisory Board. It said the board shall be advised by outside legal counsel. I'm just curious if that means, I know that the city has legal counsel, so I'm wondering if that means that we will hire a third-party management company. And if that's the case, I'm curious who would be responsible for the selection of that. Would that be the city manager, I'm assuming? But that would just be good information to have too.
All right, I'm capturing all these questions. Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide answers on them. I just straight up don't know. I have not been close to this process, but I will be capturing all questions and comments to share. I will do the best I can to get answers that I can report back to you guys at our next DAB meeting. The staff that's overseeing a lot of this stuff had said that they can't guarantee answers to everything, but they will try to work with us so we can report back to DABS. So I will work on tracking down answers for as much of these questions as I can for next month.
All right, any further discussion?
I think the only thing that I'd like to point out, because I've read through this several times, and I think that one thing that I was intrigued by was the fact that it doesn't mention anything about just being honest and not telling lies, which I would think is important for an ethics policy. Or if it's there, I missed it, but I didn't see it anywhere.
Ooh, I'm actually going to call out one of my coworkers who I think is on this call. Sarah, are you with us? Or maybe she's messaging me, so she might be able to give me some answers I can share with you guys before we wrap up today.
I think Cindy was talking about would find that stuff in the purpose. I mean, it's kind of vague, but it says government service and public sector employment is a public trust, and those who serve the public as part of its government must perform and discharge their duties consistent with the highest moral principles, which I'm assuming being honest would be a part of that, serving always the best interests of the city and its citizens. That kind of gets there, but I don't mind it being more explicit, but I don't know.
I think people have different morals and values, and what is acceptable to some may not be acceptable to others.
Well, yeah, and then that's why I said the policy, we have to have sober assessment of what a policy really is going to do. If there's a
Yes.
fundamental value difference and they decide to take the city in this direction, you know, enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
But the sharing of information can greatly make that ride more comfortable. You know, I'm informed. I knew that there was a meeting. I know that there's a meeting next week. I can schedule it. It's being videotaped. I can watch it the next day if I can't make it. You know, at least I'm fully conscious that I'm being pulled along on this trajectory that I may not like.
That's just if you can find the meeting, Richard.
Yeah, if I can just get to it.
I did hear from staff who's been working on this that the outside legal counsel would be a third party that's contracted. So she's thinking that would likely be an RFP process, but not for sure.
Perfect. So then thank you so much for that, Maddie. And so then my follow-up question would be, I know that the city council will begin discussion regarding budget. Will that be, will a line item for these fees be created? Because I mean, technically, I mean, the EAB could find, there could be a case every month, you know? And if that's the case, that's going to cost the city dollars. And I definitely think, you know, if there is a case where something needs to be investigated, then yeah, those dollars are well worth it. But particularly in times where we're wanting to maximize every penny, I just wonder, you know, how much money will be allocated to fund these third-party investigations, which I know certainly can't be cheap.
I think to add to that, Joseph, not only could it not be cheap, but what happens if the case comes up that has a real sense of urgency to be addressed at that time? Because doing an RFP process and all, that's going to take time.
Again, I just want to reiterate that I think that an ethics policy is definitely needed. I don't think the discussion should be completely taken off of the table. I just want to make sure that we're being diligent and kind of combing through all of this, because I mean, again, I think it could come back to bite us if we don't do that. And so I really hope I'm not sounding like a pessimistic person, but I really just want to be cautious. And I can't imagine the countless hours that the staff have taken to develop something like this when nothing was in place. And I know it couldn't have been easy. So very grateful for all those who have contributed to this and super supportive of an ethics policy.
No, you guys aren't being negative at all. This is exactly why we're bringing it to the DAB, because we want you guys to pick this apart and give us feedback to take to council and for staff to incorporate and what ultimately gets reviewed and voted on by council. Is there anyone in the public that wanted to share anything on the ethics policy? All right, Councilmember Cirillo, I'm handing this item back over to you if you want to move on down the agenda.
Okay. I think that's pretty much it. So I'll open it up to Dab for any announcements or updates, issues in your neighborhood.
Yeah, Jared?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, that's Catherine. I just wanted to highlight the youth listening team jobs that Maddie has been sharing on behalf of the neighboring movement in the District 3 newsletter. It's a summer job for youth age 16 to 19, and we are hiring 10 to 20. Like, we are happy to hire 20 candidates. And so I think it's a great job. Students will work in the neighborhood, getting to know neighbors and helping neighbors connect to each other. And that is tied to the South Central Neighborhood Plan. The neighboring movement has looked at one of those goals, which was developing connections or social capital. And this is a way that we are trying to address that. So just want to lob that out there. And we'd love to hire kids who have ties to the South Central neighborhood, but we are happy, you know, any youth in District 3 or even beyond who have a heart for connecting with neighbors, just shoot that flyer to them or have them contact me. So
I think you said ages 16. Oh, I'm so sorry, Cindy, go right ahead.
No, go ahead, Joseph.
Did you say 16 and 19?
16 to 19, because there is a research component to it with Wichita State. And so the age requirements for the research piece is that they be 16 to 19.
Have you reached out to Dr. Thompson by chance, the superintendent of USD 259, to share this?
I have not. I could. I've reached out to a couple of schools and like Avid sponsors and social workers, but I have at West High and South High. But that's as far as I've gotten.
I would be happy to connect you with her via email. I know that she is super, super anxious to connect kids in District 3 to job opportunities like this and would be ecstatic.
That would be great. Thank you. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
Joseph, it's on the DAB3 newsletter, the whole thing, so you could read the court requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tracy.
No, Catherine, do you want to talk about the upcoming alley cleanup?
So that's this Saturday, April the 10th, is the alley cleanup. Pretty close to Funston and Broadway in that area. It's the block east of there, kind of behind where the neighborhood garden is. Yeah, so Topeka, between Topeka and Broadway. And we'll just park around Funston. And so that's just, we've been working alley by alley in South Central, just helping neighbors who care about what their alley looks like and just need some help along the way. So that's the one we're going to work on Saturday.
8 to noon.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Cindy.
Any other announcements, neighborhood stuff? All right. Lastly, I would like to say to everyone, please plan to be in person next month. I'm very certain we are going to have our capabilities, or I'm very hopeful, I should say, that we will have the water center geared up. whether it's going to be the water center or the library, not sure exactly, the new library, because they do have a great meeting room that has an outside entrance. So we'll work through those things and plan to be in person next month. Looking forward to seeing everybody again after a year and 2 months now. So
Can I ask a question? Even though we're meeting in person next month, will there still be the opportunity for the community to tune in via Zoom? Because I think that this is an opportunity by providing Zoom to engage people that we haven't otherwise been able to engage. And I would really not like to see that go away, especially when we're trying to work on increasing engagement, and we can do that with technology. So I don't think we should let that go.
It's here to stay. We've actually been working with the comms team to update our equipment and needs. So Zoom and virtual components are now a permanent fixture for all DABs, and we are hoping to be the model for all types of public meetings with the city. So yes, it's here to stay. We want as many people to participate in these meetings as possible. And also, we are still following COVID guidelines, so there will be limited seating at the Water Center. We will use the Water Center for May. In the future, we will try to look at possibly moving DAB to the Walters branch, but plan on the Water Center for May, and there will likely need to be some limited seating for residents just to make sure that we can enforce social distancing. And also mask wearing will be enforced as well. But yep, we'll continue.
So, well, I was just going to give a vote for the Walters Library as soon as possible, just because the acoustics will be so much better than that high ceilinged glass walled room we meet in at the Water Center, which is beautiful. I love meeting there, but for this kind of thing, it would be much better at the library.
I would think that the library would probably be available by June. Currently, all the library meeting rooms are being used as storage because of their COVID operating policies, and they weren't able to give a timeline on when they'd be available, but I'd anticipate that we could look at moving DAB to the Walters branch come June, probably.
Cool.
Hi, Maddie, Jared, this is George Theoharis. Hey, I'm glad that you guys are going to stay with the Zoom, because it's been nice, even though it's not beyond me to do it. I'm glad to have been in my underwear the whole time. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for that image, George.
I'll put up some eye bleach for everybody. There you go. You can get that image out of your head.
But actually Zoom, if a DAB member, if one of you guys has something and you can't make it right on time, or you're homebound for whatever reason, you can still join and participate via Zoom. And same thing with staff. We might have WPD and fire start giving their staff reports virtually, so they aren't sending people out to the center, and they're always on call. So that will probably help save their time and keep them focused by giving them the virtual option.
Might save them a little money too, having to drive.
all right. How about a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So moved to what, Michael?
I make a motion to adjourn.
There we go.
Second it.
Gerald Henry seconded, Michael Luke with the motion. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to seeing
Good night, everybody.
Welcome all new members.
And welcome to the new members.